Welcome to A Changed Life. This is a podcast about choosing differently, how you think, how you relate, and how you lead yourself. Here we focus on the inner shifts that create real momentum and open up what's possible next. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Ilyse, and this is A Changed Life. I'm going to talk to you today about something that I don't think is brought up enough in this space. And in a nutshell, it is not all help is helpful. And some help actually hurts. And I know that that is a strong, bold statement and a strong way to open up the podcast, but it is so important. And I'm hoping that you're going to stay with me in this conversation. So there's a term that you may be familiar with. Maybe this is the first time that you're ever hearing it. It's called treatment-induced trauma. And I know that it sounds clinical, but what it describes is something very human. It is the harm that can happen when you go to get help, and the help itself causes damage. It happens in therapy, it happens in coaching, and I want you to understand how, because if it's happened to you, I want you to be able to name it. And if it hasn't, then I want you to be able to protect yourself. Treatment trauma or treatment-induced trauma can look like a therapist who keeps circling the same wound for years and years and years without any pathway forward. It can look like a coach who takes you into the deepest emotional territory that they're not trained or equipped to hold. It can look like someone who mirrors your pain back to you so well that you feel seen, but nothing actually shifts. And you keep paying and you keep showing up. And a year later, you're still in the same place, except now you've spent thousands of dollars and you've lost trust in yourself for not getting better faster. It can also look like being blamed by your practitioner. It's your fault. It's something you did. Maybe you're not trying hard enough, or you're not getting the concepts. And I'm going to get into another aspect of this in a little bit in the podcast, but any one of these things and all of these things can cause treatment-induced trauma, where the treatment is causing you trauma. Now, this is different than having hard sessions. I have a lot of hard sessions with clients, and especially when we're navigating really difficult situations, relational situations, repetitive relational situation, things that keep happening and the loop and the patterns haven't been broken yet. It'd be very, very difficult sessions. So I want to differentiate between having a hard session and being traumatized by your practitioner, being poked and prodded and traumatized or left astray. So they kind of the opposite ends of the same stick. So here's something that I see, and this may sound familiar to you. Someone chooses who they're going to work with based on proximity to trust. So there may be somebody that you trust in a given field. Maybe it's a referral. You trust somebody who's in a group that you're in, and they refer you to somebody. So you don't know the person to trust the person, but somebody else does. And so from there, it's borrowed trust. It could be someone that you follow on Instagram or you listen to their podcast. And because this person is trained and there are people that are underneath them, you make the assumption that those people are also trained. So let me say something about this last one specifically. Training under someone is not the same as being trained. Proximity to expertise is not expertise. I was working inside a company where coaches had never taken a single coaching course or certification, not one. Not one. They were hired. They were not trained. There were therapists functioning as coaches, which sounds fine maybe on the surface, like you're getting more for your money. But the frameworks between therapy and coaching are completely different. And there were coaches taking on clients who needed much higher level of care than coaching could ever provide. And the reason those clients were referred out were not referred out because referring them out meant lost revenue. I know for me, I could not stay in that environment. I would not stay in that environment. And I'm telling you this not to alarm you, but because you deserve to know this is happening in this space right now to people who are vulnerable and looking for help. And that's one of the most important pieces here. When you are vulnerable, when you are scared, when you are not at your best, when you are depleted, you may take someone's opinion, their guidance, their direction in a very factual way. It must be true. It's coming from so-and-so. But that's not always the case. And I think one of the hardest things, one of the most difficult and painful things is to see people in vulnerable places in their life being taken advantage of. There is no excuse for that. None. And there's another way that people get pulled into the wrong support, and it's worth naming because it's so common right now. You may follow someone online. Maybe you watch their content every day. You actually feel like you know them. You feel like they even get you in a way that maybe other people don't get you. And you feel like you have a relationship with them. So when they offer a program or a coaching container or some kind of an opportunity, it feels like the natural next step. This is a parasocial relationship, and there's nothing wrong with it in itself. But here's what you need to understand. You knowing them is not the same as them knowing you. You knowing them on social media is not the same as you knowing them. You have seen a curated version of the person. You don't know how they really work with clients. You don't know what their actual training is. You don't know what their real outcomes are. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about therapy versus coaching, because there is a real difference, and people use these words interchangeably. I can't tell you how many times that I've corrected a client or clients in session where they say therapy, and I'm like, no, this is coaching. I am your coach. And I get it, because coaching can feel and sound very therapeutic at times, but it's not. Therapy tends to be past oriented. It goes into the origin. It explores where something came from, what happened early. It goes to the root. The relationship between the therapist and the client tends to be more professionally distanced. Many therapists are trained not to share themselves, not to self-disclose, to hold what's called a neutral space. The pace is slower by design. One of my clients recently, just a week or so ago, she described her experience perfectly, beautifully. She said her therapist listens. She gives a slow nod. She feels validated, but she doesn't prod into what is being shared. And she said, what she's offering feels like what the last 5 therapists offered. Where's the new perspective? Where's the pathway forward? I don't want to keep talking about my family. I want to be challenged. My thinking got me to where I am. I need new thinking. And that sentence stopped me. My thinking got me where I am. I need new thinking. That is coaching. Coaching is more linear. It's outcome oriented. It's future focused. It asks, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what's getting in the way? A good coach is active. They share perspective. They challenge you. They bring tools and frameworks. They are in the conversation with you. They're not just witnessing it. Neither is better. I'm not saying that coaching is better than therapy. or therapy is better than coaching. They are different. And what you need to determine is which one is right for you, or whether you need both at different times for different reasons. And the whole point of this whole episode is to talk about advocating for yourself. I want you to become someone who asks questions before they hand over their trust or their money or their emotional well-being. So here's what I want you to ask. And you might want to play this a couple times and write this down. Where did you get your training or certification? Now, here's the thing about coaching. There's no certification that is required, but that doesn't mean that you don't get certified. I have multiple certifications in multiple disciplines, in mastery in some of them, and I continue to learn. I continue to grow myself. It's not a one and done. So ask that question. How long have you been doing this? How many clients have you worked with that have my particular problem or issue or what I'm dealing with? Do you have a lived experience of what I'm going through? And how has that shaped your approach? What kinds of outcomes have you seen? I want to know about the good ones, and I also want to know about the ones that don't work. So what kind of a client have you worked with that didn't get an outcome? What tools and skills will I actually walk away with? And what happens if this isn't the right fit? Those are not aggressive questions. They are reasonable questions. Any practitioner who responds to you defensively, that is telling you something really important. And one more thing. If you're working with a therapist, you can look up their license online. It is public information. You can verify that it's active and it's in good standing. And I want to be direct with you about something. A person who is willing to operate without a valid license, who's willing to break the law in the field of mental health, is telling you something about who they are. And that is not a small thing. That is a character statement. You're not being difficult by checking. You are being smart. So be smart. This is your life. So what is trusted support? Trusted support is not just someone who makes you feel good in a session. That's not what trusted support is. It's someone who's actually helping you to move forward. It's someone that's actually helping you to see things differently, a new, fresh perspective. You should be able to look back after 60 or 90 days and name specific shifts, specific moments where you thought differently, specific ways where you've shown up in your life that feels new, that is new. If you can't, that's worth a conversation. And if that conversation doesn't land, it may be time to find someone else. And it's not quitting. That's self-advocacy. The other thing that I want to say about coaching is not meant for crisis management. It's not meant for one-offs. It truly isn't. Coaching compounds. You're building on the skills and the tools and the perspectives and the lens that you're looking through, especially when it's a new one. You have to gain momentum. So doing it as every now and again, it's not even worth your money. Don't even bother. If you can't invest in yourself with a coach for at least 2 to 3 months of consistently showing up with that coach for yourself and doing the work, don't do it yet. You're just not ready yet. In my business personally, I built something and it's called the transparent partnership model, and it's for couples that I work with. What it means is both people and the relationship all work with one trusted voice, one framework, one direction. There aren't separate therapists, there aren't separate messages, there aren't separate coaches. There's not all of this stuff going on behind the scenes where I've seen this often, where a coach or a therapist will somewhat diagnose a partner that they've never spoken to based on what they're hearing and what they're being told. And I understand we are human. We do form opinions. We do have a point of view, but that is very dangerous and very irresponsible to diagnose someone that you've literally never met. So I want you to think about that. And that really, really, really hurts trust when a partner goes back to their partner, when one partner goes back to another partner and says, my coach said, or my therapist thinks, you have XYZ. Really, really damaging. So the way that I work, one voice, no secrets. So whatever is said is fair game. There's one strategy, there's one pathway forward. It doesn't mean that we don't branch off into other paths, because not everything works for everybody. And that's why it's important to have multiple tools, multiple frameworks, multiple blueprints, so to speak. Because what works for one person and one couple is not going to work for another person and another couple. So you have to be able to have lots of tools in your toolbox to be able to come at things from different angles. But if there's so many voices in the room, when there are so many different points of views, different opinions, sometimes that could be helpful. I'm not going to say that it can't happen. I know of situations where that's happened. And a lot of times it can be hurtful and harmful. So listen, not all help is helpful. I know you know that. Some help actually hurts, and you deserve to know the difference before you find out the hard way. Ask the questions, check credentials, trust the fit. Not just that you're following someone, and so if they suggest so-and-so, I'm just going to go with it. Ask the questions anyway. Do the work, advocate for yourself. Find your voice in this way. I know when you're in a transition, when you are in a tough pocket in your life, sometimes you just want help, you just want relief, and you skip steps and you cut really important corners. And I really want to stress here, you deserve more. And one of the things that you can do to show yourself how much you care about yourself, how much you care about your life, how much you respect yourself, how much you love yourself, how much you know with your worth, is to ask the hard questions, is to advocate for yourself, is to do the legwork before you sign on. I hope that this conversation was helpful for you today. I hope that it illuminates and brings light to this topic, because it is so important. It is a real partnership when you are venturing into your life with someone. And in some cases with a therapist, you're venturing backwards and you're really doing the deep dive, and could be very difficult and very painful and very emotional. And with a coach who's walking with you forward into your life, again, could be very painful, could be very scary, could be very destabilizing. You want somebody that is solid, and you want somebody that is going to be with you for the long walk, because it is a long walk. Okay, I hope that this was helpful, my friends, and I will see you in the next episode. If something in today's episode resonated with you, you'll find a link in the show notes to book a free consultation call. Or you can visit ilysecraft.com to explore my programs and free resources. Nothing changes until you do. And when you do, everything does. This is a changed life. Not all at once, but for good.